Welcome to the Real Estate Oasis podcast, where we're talking about doing real estate in Puerto Rico. On this episode, we're going to get into the Act 60 incentives, such as the Young Entrepreneurs Grant. So tune in and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Oasis. So this week, we're going to be talking about a couple of different incentives, young entrepreneurs, Act 2022, now all part of Act 60. So we're going to get into it. My name is Maiki Paul. I'm from Axios Real Estate and Coupled Investments.
Hey guys, I'm Crager. I'm from PR Consultants.
Hello, I'm Zachary Postil from Puerto Rico.
Félix Barreras from Lifeafar Capital.
Awesome. So a couple of the different incentives that we're talking about have all been rolled under what is now Act 60. So we're going to get into it. The one that I'm a part of, and maybe we can start there, and Zachary as well, Young Entrepreneurs. That one, Zachary, do you want to talk about a little bit of the benefits? Highlight that for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So the requirements, first off is you have to be between 16 and 35. You have to be a Puerto Rican resident. So this is, again, one of the opportunities that locals, Puerto Ricans, can access. And you have to be a high school graduate, and you have to build a business here. So bring a business here or build a brand new business here. So that's originally what I started off doing, having a boutique call center here. I'm shifting it, and I've got to amend my current decree. They also actually referred to me as a female throughout the whole Spanish decree, so I learned that the hard way. So I got to get that amended as well. But yeah, so the huge benefit with this is that you can actually the first $500,000 you make between year 1 and 3 is totally 100% tax free. So that's huge. And the one negative with that also, because with Act 60 is you can extend to use that for up to 15 years, as I understand it. But with the Young Entrepreneurs Act, it's 3 years. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's meant to just help young entrepreneurs start new businesses. So one of the requirements is that it does have to be a new business.
Right.
As Zachary said, you have to be between 16 and 35. And the decree lasts for 3 years for that new business. That said, they want your intention to be creating a long-term business.
Of course.
Right? So create the business. The first 3 years that it's in operation, 100% tax exemption on the first $500,000 in net income.
Right.
And then there are other exemptions on municipal and property taxes as well.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, you want to.
So I'm actually, so originally doing this boutique call center, and I've shifted because, as we'll get into later about the tourism, there's just such great opportunities in regards to Airbnbs and hotels and everything like that. So I've shifted a little bit, and I'm aiming to go more into Airbnbs and utilizing that business. So I'm going to be working on that. And it takes some time. It took me about because I hired a lawyer to do it, and it took about 9 months to actually process the decree. Luckily, I'm 35 now, but I started when I was 34. So, and I actually got the decree when I was 34. But
And you still get till now you're 38 to make the
correct
the 500,000.
It will extend, yeah.
You feel like the shift to hospitality gives you a better chance of making $500,000 in the next 3 years.
I think so, yeah, and I think it's a better contributor to Puerto Rico. I think I can make more of a difference, and I can hire more.
Right? Sure.
Create more value.
Just wondering, what's the process again for applying to the actual decree?
So, like I said, I hired a lawyer to do that. But Maiki, you were saying that you can do this by yourself.
So I'm kind of a bootstrapper, and so I want to encourage the bootstrapping approaches as well for anyone who wants to use their resources a little bit differently. I wanted to see what it was like to actually apply on my own, because I had heard, in conversations like this with other people, that it's all done, actually all the degrees are done through the single business portal. So you can find the incentives that you're applying for in the single business portal. We'll include the link in the notes, the show notes. And so you go on, you find the incentives. Young entrepreneurs happens to be in the other incentives category. And it will list out all of the documents you need. For example, you need your birth certificate, license, you need your corporation, incorporation documents. So that part, I will, engage a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I will engage a lawyer to create my LLC and the operating agreement along with it, and I'll include that in my application. But I basically submit all of the documents online, and it's a $5 processing fee. So, there's different ways you can apply for this particular one. The others are a little bit more complex, so you probably want to engage a consultant, attorney. But for young entrepreneurs, it's, you file the documents that you need. And just to give it a sense of my timeline, I submitted the documents in June, the end of June. I followed up through July and August, no response. Even calls, I have emails if folks want them, if you want, like me, you like to pester people. No response, but I just heard back last week, and they need additional documentation, but they are reading your application when you do it online, so you don't get discouraged even if you don't hear back right away.
So are you running your business while you're going through the application process?
So our plan is to actually incorporate a property management business under young entrepreneurs, and there are going to be additional business services related to real estate, vacation homes. I'm going to try to keep it broad. It is going to be a new business as per the requirements, but that's the plan, to do kind of a overall property management company to manage all of the vacation rentals we hope to have very soon. So,
And because of the difficulties of making a change, maybe it is a good idea to have a much broader scale, right? Give yourself lots of different ideas or room to grow.
Keep ambiguous.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And you can do that at the entity level, just keep your operating agreement and your LLC.
That's super smart. Yeah, I like it.
Just wondering, is there like a difference between, for example, like the Act 2022, a lot of people are familiar with it, and that you have to make a charitable donation to a charity. Does that apply also to the Young Entrepreneurs Act?
No, you do not have to do that. What you're doing is directly impacting exactly.
Yeah.
So
We're a big fan of the business creation incentives.
Yeah.
That's what my partner and I focused on. So the export services, young entrepreneurs, because we're entrepreneurial. We want to create businesses, create jobs on the island, and so we focus more on those. But the other incentive, 22, does require a donation to nonprofit entities that are approved by the government in order to qualify or comply with the act. Yeah. But I don't think we mentioned the exemptions on property and municipal taxes. So just as an added bonus, 100% exemption on property and municipal taxes for young entrepreneurs as well.
So that's like with home ownership or what?
Well, ask a CPA, but I think it's with home ownership. I think it's with your personal property.
Like the property taxes on this house.
Yes.
Would be exempt.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any type of business that they're particularly looking for the Young Entrepreneurs Act, or it's pretty open into what you can get as a business into the act?
From what I know, it's pretty open. They just wanted you to be creating a new business.
exactly.
Of course, Puerto Rico has priority businesses that they're trying to really incentivize, as we know from the Tourism Act and things like that.
Sure.
But for this, I'm pretty sure this is pretty open.
Yeah, and there's a huge opportunity for really any business. What we were talking, you can open an ice cream shop. It's gonna be profitable here.
Yeah.
There's a huge need for all that stuff because a lot of stuff did leave during before and after REIA. So,
I think you hear a lot about young people leaving the island for opportunities in the States. And so it feels like this is a good way to bring those young people back because there are, I would argue that there are more opportunities in Puerto Rico right now than there are probably anywhere else in the United States.
and that's what you did.
Yeah,
we left for a little while and came back.
Yeah. Came back. And I know that a few of us are doing the same thing. So I know a lot of Puerto Rican friends of mine that are slowly coming back to Puerto Rico. But I think again, it's very good for us to educate about this specific subjects because a lot of us don't know it, right? A lot of Puerto Ricans have this wrong sense in some cases where we don't have access to a lot of these acts. For example, the Act 22, and well now the Act 60. But obviously, all of this is accessible to Puerto Ricans, so that's very very encouraging to see and very good to see as a Puerto Rican.
Yeah, and we talked about this on one of our other episodes. I mean, like, as a young person who's trying to start different ventures, like, there's so much risk that you take on, and especially financial risk, and you don't really have something to catch you when you fall. You know, it's really just like, it's just you and your whatever resources you could gather. So being in a place where the government is encouraging entrepreneurship and really putting money behind it, and that's the tough thing. So you don't have enough capital, or you're trying to preserve all the capital that you can to really accelerate or grow your business.
That's such a good point.
Huge.
Yeah, because I mean, and we're just skimming the surface basically on all the opportunities that young entrepreneurs have. There's all these other grants and different loans and stuff like that you can take advantage of. That we can definitely dive deep into. But just on the surface, the 500K is really a nice thing to think about. Certainly, there's a lot of other stuff to help young entrepreneurs build new businesses here.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool. And it applies, obviously, like you mentioned, to pretty much, it's pretty open to any business. Is there like any requirements in terms of like you have to have certain jobs for locals or anything like that? Or is that something that obviously like they expect from you in the future down the road?
Not this one.
Okay.
Not this one. I think the Puerto Rican government wants to see that. It's definitely an added benefit, and I think everyone is trying to do that, create jobs. I believe, though, Export Services Act 20, now part of Act 60, there is an expectation as the business grows that jobs are added, and it's based on the business and the revenues of the business over time. So there are different requirements for different incentives. And I think tourism, correct me if I'm wrong, they want to see how many jobs you're creating with the business as well.
We're going to have a whole podcast on what was Act 74, which is now in Act 60, but it's tourism. And yes, I mean, part of that is that they're looking directly at how many jobs you can create, what do those jobs pay, and
For those of us that are joining us in the podcast and are not very familiar with the Act 2022, now Act 60, could you guys explain a little bit more what specifically the Act 2022 is and how Puerto Ricans can access some of the local the benefits that are available to them?
Well, I can't speak on Act 22 as well.
Okay.
Maybe someone else can. But for Act 20, now part of Act 60, that's the export services.
Okay.
The main the big thing is that it's 4% corporate income tax.
Gotcha.
So that's huge. There's like a few places where you get 4% corporate tax rate. You do have to be providing services outside of the island.
Okay.
So if you're operating a business that's providing services to businesses or people within Puerto Rico, that does not qualify.
Gotcha.
Now, from my understanding, again, not an accountant, not a lawyer, from my understanding, it's at the entity level, meaning I believe Puerto Rican residents are eligible to start export services companies.
Okay.
The main requirement is that business is providing services outside of the island.
Gotcha.
So it is. I'd like to just kind of go into maybe why would a government want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of businesses that may have left the island for one reason or another. It's a way to bring more businesses back to the island. If you think about the infrastructure that comes with moving a business, tends to bring more people who will spend more capital and potentially more jobs. Even though those services may be rendered elsewhere, for our example, we're growing our real estate business and we're looking to hire admins, photographers, etc., to help us market our business outside of Puerto Rico. So we're doing that hiring locally to help us while we're here, while we're providing services to clients outside of Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So the idea, and I think, it's working to some extent, and I think there's definitely some, room for improvement, but it's to bring those businesses to Puerto Rico to, generate the economy.
Gotcha.
So can you couple Act 20 with the Young Entrepreneurs Act?
No, you can't.
You cannot.
You can't.
They're not
separate.
able to
it's
piggyback
explicit.
each other.
Yeah, it's explicit in the Young Entrepreneurs Grant.
But you and your husband have an interesting dynamic where he is one and you're the other, right?
Yes, exactly.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so he is under Act 20, now Act 60, the export services part of Act 60, and is exporting consulting services to client in the States. And it was actually very, kind of ingenious because we thought about it, and there's ways you can do that. If you are in a job in the States and your job has the flexibility to fire you first, and then rehire you as
a consultant,
as a 1099 consultant, independent contractor.
Beautiful.
You can then, register your company here in Puerto Rico under Act 60. And you're now a Puerto Rican entity. You qualify for the incentive, 4% corporate tax rate, and you are still providing your services outside of Puerto Rico. So that was basically the structure that we used.
Okay, interesting.
So I like that this Act 20 and the Young Entrepreneurs, they both would allow someone who has grown up here and then gone elsewhere to find opportunities to come back and take advantage of these things, and that they're available to even locals who have been there their whole lives. As long as you're not like me, I'm 35 years removed from being 16, so I don't qualify for the Young Entrepreneurs Act. But Adan, who's behind the camera, is a young man, and he can start a business, which he has, and didn't even know about the Young Entrepreneurs Act. So I hope that this video gets out there. We hear a lot, these people are coming to us and they get these tax benefits that we don't get. But there are portions of this tax code where it is for locals, and it's important to get the word out there.
I also want to add, so if a Puerto Rican leaves, if I'm not mistaken, regarding Act 2022, if you leave for I think it's 5 years to the island, and then you come back, right? You can apply as a Puerto Rican to the Act 2022, and also take advantage of that particular benefit. And then the other thing I want to add, regarding Act 2022, I know that Invest Puerto Rico came out with some pretty interesting statistics the other day regarding how they created thousands of jobs, like the Act 2022. With an average salary of $65,000. So, for Puerto Rico, that is huge. And that's exactly what we need, to promote the talent to stay here and just, be a lot better. And instead of going to Salt Lake City, Utah, going to anywhere else in the States, you can stay here in Puerto Rico and get that salary that you want.
Yeah.
So.
And it's attracting a lot of entrepreneurial folks that you just build on each other, right? It's just like this new energy. At least I feel everyone's feeling like very optimistic and positive and collaborative. And when young people hear about, I can actually apply for this, I can start my business here, and have all of this really encouraging entrepreneurial environment, it's huge, and everyone feels really excited about it. I don't know, I am.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we've gone through Act 60, the export services, young entrepreneurs. There's one we haven't really touched on yet. It's Act 22, formerly Act 22, still now under the Act 60. So Robert, what is Act 22? Can you break down the benefits?
Sure.
Who qualifies?
I will as best I can. Surprisingly, none of us are Act 22. Well, none of us are even Act 20, but I recently saw a YouTube video that's making me think I might need to change my mind on that and join. Act 22, though, is is the Capital Gains Act. So if you make a living in buying and selling Forex, or if you are a day trader on the stock market, or the big one here in Puerto Rico, I think we're kind of the crypto mecca right now. If you are a person who makes their living off of the blockchain stuff, all of that income would be either long or short-term capital gains, and through what was Act 22, it would be completely zero tax.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty crazy. So there are some caveats to it. And it sort of changes. So the earlier that you got into Act 22, the better it was for you. But recently now, I think that if you join and you get approved, there's a $10,000 donation per year that you need to make to a local charity. So that's great. That means that anybody who does come for this reason is going to support something local that's going to benefit everybody. I think it has brought these crypto people here who they've had this wild wealth building thing where they bought into Bitcoin when it was pennies, and now it's 40,000 a coin. And so they were calling them for a while the Bitcoin billionaires were running around the island, and unfortunately that's not me.
Me neither.
Not me either.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty neat that you can be out and you can see like a Rock Deers or someone who that is, right? Like they got in early on this stuff and they've made wild gains, and they come and live here in Puerto Rico and get to take advantage of trading that stuff for zero tax. So what could be better than that?
And just wondering, because I think a lot of people mix up Act 20 with 22.
Yeah.
Can you explain
Differentiate them?
Differentiate them a little bit, and then I know Act 20 is a lot of it is available to Puerto Ricans. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think we kind of hit on that a little while ago, but yes, Act 20 we believe is available to anybody on the island, right? So if you start a business that does export services, you can be a member of Act 20. It's not a very difficult thing to become approved for. It's not particularly expensive, and it's available to everybody.
Okay.
So that's great. Act 22 costs a little bit more money, has the donation piece that requires you give a certain amount, and is not necessarily available for everybody. So you have to, on Act 22, you have to have lived off of the island for, I think, 5 years is what we've heard. And then you would be able to qualify for this Act 22. So the difference between Act 20 and 22, export services for Act 20 would be, like I have a business back in Florida and we have a rental portfolio. I could start an Act 20 business that would consult to the business back home to manage those properties. And I could take that income here in Puerto Rico and pay a 4% corporate tax, as opposed to whatever my tax rate is on the income in Florida. So, and then I saw someone on YouTube who was very creative. I need to run it up the flagpole and make sure what I heard is possible, because it is. And I mean, he's basically figured out a way that he's consulting on everything that he's doing in the States and making the stateside entity break even, and then bringing all the income to Puerto Rico and paying a 4% tax.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right? Yeah. So we came to Puerto Rico just after REIA because we were looking for a better market to have our money go further and to have more opportunity. And so we got here. We didn't know about young entrepreneurs. We didn't know about Act 20 or 22. That wasn't what we came for. We just were looking for opportunity where our money went a little bit further and the cash flow could be great.
So Robbie, just wondering, with the Act 22, in order for the people that are interested in coming into Puerto Rico via Act 22, do you have to liquidate your assets in the States?
So I don't think you have to liquidate your assets, but I have heard of traders liquidating and then buying back in once they get here, so that they establish their basis, and then they know that all of their growth is tax-free once they're here. However, I guess there's multiple income. It's not just capital gains, right? There's also dividend income, and there's interest income that can be tax-free in this Act 22 as well. So I wouldn't think that they're liquidating those assets if they're already receiving that income And again, we're not accountants and we're not giving you professional advice, so you should look and see what's best for you and talk to a professional and make sure that what we're kind of saying and what we think we know that we're actually getting it right.
And it fits your particular situation, because some of these are, by individual.
Yeah.
There's another piece to Act 22. I think it's specific to Act 22 that you need to be most closely tied to Puerto Rico. So there's several tests that you have to meet. Living here is really the big one.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen and I've heard of people that try and kind of skirt the line and stuff. I think that's a dangerous thing to do. If you're going to come here and take advantage of this beautiful place, you really should plan to really move here and be here and not just fly in for 6 months in a day.
And what a sad way to live, right? Like counting the days and stuff like that.
Counting the days is tough.
In jail, and you got a tally or something like that. Like
Right.
we're living in paradise. Like, what else do you need?
Yeah. So most closely tied. Come here and buy a house, join the gym, join a church. Work here, live here.
Contribute to the island.
It's a pretty good life too, right?
Yeah.
Like we have beautiful weather year round. We don't ever shovel snow here.
Oh man, being from the Northeast, snow. It's
Yeah.
like, it's terrible. Your car goes a lot further on these roads.
Yeah.
It's, when being Puerto Rican, when I lived in Utah, that was the thing for me.
The
I
worst.
love snow days.
Oh, you would love it.
I mean, it was new to me, so.
You love it for the first 3 months.
I liked it. I mean,
Did you like it? Yeah.
I lived in an apartment, so I never had to show snow.
Oh.
But I think, at the end of the day, I think this Act 2022 is something that also promotes, Puerto Ricans to come back to the island. I know that there's a big exodus of Puerto Rico that left the island a long time ago, and we have about, I think, 6 million or so that are outside of the state. So, I think this is a very good reason for those that are entrepreneurs and those that are looking to contribute again to their island to come back.
You're saying that more Puerto Ricans are outside of Puerto Rico itself, right?
Yes.
Than there are on the
Yes,
island.
correct.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
That's
So,
huge.
Yeah.
We have about
Population
3.2
to
million here,
Yeah.
and in the States, when you count everyone, it's about 6 million or so Puerto Ricans that are in the States,
Wow.
or even more from our state. So, So I think this type of structure definitely entices people to
Give them an
come
incentive.
Yeah.
to come back.
But they have to know about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're hoping to share this information and make
For
sure
sure.
it's clear,
Well, and we're seeing that more and more. Like even yesterday with the Rio Rico group, there were half a dozen people here who had come back to the island recently. And they're part of your group. You want to kind of expand on that a little bit? I don't remember all of the names, but it was a big group yesterday.
It was, yeah. and we're continuing to try to grow that, to bring locals and, Act 60 people or people from the mainland and try to collaborate more and more, because we have the monthly meeting, but we also are continuing to try to do lunch and learns, and we have something called the Deal Makers meeting on Saturday morning at 7:30 in the morning, specifically to try to get really motivated, people that really want to do
People that are willing to get up at 7:30 in the morning on a
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, in a vacation area. So it's we're trying to get that going more and more, and bring more education and bring more value to everyone coming here and the people that have been established here for a while. So.
Yeah, for sure. Just wondering, jumping back to the Act 22, I think there was one thing that we should definitely cover in terms of dividends and how it works for all of that. I know that that's where you get the 0% tax basis, right? Like dividends. What were the other
dividends,
things?
interest, and capital gains.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% exemption, tax exemption.
Wow. So yeah, definitely a very good.
100%. That's like almost free.
It's
almost
pretty much free.
zero.
Yeah.
Very good incentive to come back to the island.
That's a very good incentive.
Yeah, look into the residency requirements for that. I think we kind of mentioned, it's 183 days minimum, but why wouldn't you want to stay longer? You'll have to establish close ties to the island, which may involve making sure, assets in your name in the States are liquidated, everything that you own in your name, personal property, is here in Puerto Rico. You bring your family along. You want to make it very clear that you're complying and you truly are a resident of Puerto Rico. We've heard from experts that's very, very, very important. The compliance is important. And it's worth it. I mean, you come to a beautiful island, you meet great people, and you get to benefit financially as well. So, do you, as we've been saying, do your research on these different requirements, and we're happy to point you to a couple of experts and resources that we've used to get smart on these incentives.
For sure.
There's one other that it's not an act, but we wanted to talk about,
yes.
long-term rents.
Yes. Act 132. Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
It's a statute 132.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an act, but anyways, long-term rental income is a non-taxable event on the island of Puerto Rico. So we're PR consultants, we're not Act 20 or 22, but we have over 100 doors of long-term rented properties, and so this is one that we love it, and didn't know about it when we came here. We just came here to buy good deals, buy things, and get them fixed up, and give back to the community, give someone a good place to live. And then we learned, hey, take this rental income long term, you don't have to pay tax on it. So that means Section 8. That means conventional renters who, you live in your apartment, your landlord doesn't have to pay income on that revenue. And that's for everybody. That just is through 2025 at least. And
And just wondering, Robert, when you're managing that type of property, is there like a minimum, like for example, like Act 74, if you want to apply for that, you have like a minimum of 7 units. Is there like a minimum of how many long-term rentals you need?
No, I believe that it just has to be long-term. So the stuff that would fall outside of that commercial doesn't fall inside of long-term. It's long-term resident rents. So commercial will fall outside of it. Airbnb will fall outside of it. Operating a hotel, those things will fall outside of it. You have to pay tax on that rent. But Section 8 and traditional rents, I mean, you could buy a fourplex, live in one, rent 3, and get all of the 3 that you bring in that money, pay your mortgage. All of that income is free.
Wow. So, and once again, this is also available to Puerto Ricans, right? Like it's insane.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that it's so very rarely put out there that most people don't even realize it. So I bet you that way more than half of the landlords on the island even realize that they could be taking this rent tax-free. Like we didn't know. We were here probably 18 months before someone said, "Hey, did you know you could do this right?" Yeah. That changes everything.
I think it was meant to expire too, so
it was.
To the end, and
that's right.
COVID happened, so they extended it to 2025, which is great because it incentivizes, landlords to continue creating and maintaining long-term rentals instead of, turning everything into short-term rentals. So it's meant to create more housing.
We can all just hold hands and pray now that they'll extend it a little bit more.
I hope so. Because that's a game that I'm looking to get into. So
so that was a good question. A lot of Puerto Ricans are small operators. I've seen a lot of converted homes, right? Like big homes divided into 12 units. And a lot of folks do that as a way to earn income. Real estate is a great wealth building tool. That's why we're here to talk about it. That definitely qualifies. Just your long-term rental income, 100% tax-free until 2025.
That's very, very good. So I think I would encourage everyone to really lawyer up, get a good CPA. And really learn about all of these apps. Particularly if you're Puerto Rican and you're not taking advantage of them, you should definitely be taking advantage of them. Because at the end, it's for making this island better, and you should have a little bit of how can I say? The government should promote you and give you a little bit of an incentive for doing good. So it's good.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, you guys, for joining the podcast, and we hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.